Joining us now from Chicago is Democratic strategist and CNN senior political commentator David Axelrod. David, thanks for being with us. What's your sense of the stakes for Hillary Clinton in this Benghazi testimony this week?
Well, I think that there are stakes for her, but they've been reduced by the kind of circus around this committee, some of which you discussed in your interviews with the two leaders of that committee. I think most Americans suspect that there's a political element to this. That is to say, had Hillary Clinton not been running for president of the United States, there probably would not have been 8 investigations. It probably would not have bled into the presidential race as it has here. And then you have the testimony of some of his own members. I thought it was pretty remarkable when he kind of went negative on his own members there, including the majority leader, and said he had no idea what the committee was doing. So I think it was going to be a very pressureful moment for Hillary Clinton. It probably still will be. But now there's a lot of pressure on Chairman Gowdy to prove that this whole thing isn't merely a political escapade.
Speaking of pressure moments on Hillary Clinton, she passed a pressure moment in that debate this week, the Democratic debate. How do you people think she did well? Her campaign certainly thinks she did well. Can she lock in gains after having a good, what happens after a good performance like that?
Well, I think what she did was she ended what was a panic. You know, in the summer and into the fall, there was this concern that she wasn't going to be the strong candidate that people hoped she would be. I think she allayed some of those concerns with a very strong debate performance. I think Bernie Sanders probably did well with his own supporters in that debate. And between them, they continue to hold about 3/4 of the vote, even with the vice president as a potential candidate in those polls.
I want to ask you a question about Bernie Sanders. He said basically what he's going to do is create a revolution. That's going to put pressure on Congress and get the things passed that he proposes. You were a part of doing that with President Obama, trying to take the coalition built in the election to create and affect policy. Given your experience, how realistic are Bernie Sanders' claims about a revolution affecting policy?
You know, I had this discussion with him. He was on my podcast a few weeks ago, and I asked him about health care specifically because he's calling for a single-payer health care system. And I pointed out to him that we couldn't even get a public option within the proposal that we had for the Affordable Care Act because some Democrats were resistant to it. And he said, well, I'm going to have millions of people, march on Washington, and representatives will look out the window and they will see that. Well, the fact is a majority of Americans don't support single payer. I happen to think it's a good idea, but I respect the fact that a lot of Americans don't. So, and I think Bernie Sanders knows that. He's been in Congress for 25 years, so he's a very experienced legislator, and he knows what the limitations are. He's speaking to people's aspirations, and he's doing well with it.
Let me ask you about Joe Biden. The speculation continues. One of the things that's talked about if he were to run is that he would run as a more full-throated supporter of President Obama. He's even said to run as a third term of Barack Obama. Is that a sufficiently distinguishing characteristic to make him that much different than Hillary Clinton in a Democratic primary?
You know, I think it's tough. One of the great impetus for his candidacy through the summer months and into the fall was this sense that Hillary Clinton was deficient as a candidate. I think she's, as I said earlier, turned a bunch of that off. And now he's between 10 and 20% in most of these national polls. He's late in terms of raising money. It's difficult to put organization together. He's got real challenges ahead if he gets into the race. He's talented. He's got a lot to offer, but it's a hard road forward if he decides to go.
Reporting has been that he might make a decision this weekend. Now there's new reporting suggesting it might take even longer. If you were involved in advising him in some capacity, is his window closing? Has it closed?
Well, there are some official reasons why it will close because a handful of states have filing deadlines in November, and you have to do certain things to get ready for those. And I also think, particularly within the Democratic community, there's a growing impatience with this period of reflection. I think he really is struggling with the emotional toll of running for president versus his ambition to do so, and he's obviously going to take every minute he can to weigh the two.
All right, David Axelrod, thanks so much for being with us. A lot going on in the Democratic race. We'll be back in a moment.